Auto is without debate one of the largest pop culture phenomenons that we'll ever see in our lifetimes. Long after we're all dead and the final ones and zeros of this video are erased from the internet, the legacy of GTA will continue through the ages. I, like I'm sure many of you, had my introduction during the 6th generation of gaming systems, sneaking off to my cousin's house to play San Andreas on their Xbox without my mum knowing. And then spending my teen years exploring the 3rd game and Vice City on my PS2 now that I was old enough to appreciate them. But one aspect of this series that has always intrigued me were the classic games. I have dabbled with them on PS1 back in the day, not really knowing what to make of them because I was simply too young to understand the material, and coming back to them sporadically over the years wanting to experience what they were all about, still not really knowing what to make of them. So today, I'd finally like to find out, is classic Grand Theft Auto still worth playing today? The only way we're going to find out is to dive in and get some answers. Just to quickly get some of the history out of the way, Rockstar North, formerly DMA Design, were working on Race and Chase, a top-down police chase game where you race through city streets to chase down criminals, when seeing the most fun was had with how the cars reacted, crashing and trying to run each other off of the road. The game was flipped to the perspective of a criminal, now avoiding the police in frantic pursuits. The end result was a top-down game primarily focused on driving that also allowed the player to step out on foot to explore the world, and with the freedom of a large city, 3 in fact, each massive and unique, this would ultimately lay the groundwork for the open world sandbox genre we know today. Of course, traditional RPG titles had been using a similar open plan format for several years prior, but this was a big step in evolution, giving players the freedom to take whatever streets they choose, hop out and interact with the environment, and with a realistic setting, the concept hit home a lot more. Famously, the game received a lot of negative reception prior to its release, given its depiction of a criminal being the protagonist and gunning down police and other people on the streets. Yet somehow, DMA spun this into a net positive for a successful launch on DOS and PlayStation 1 in late 1997 for Europe, and a second quarter 98 release for the United States. And here it is! This is the very first Grand Theft Auto, the PlayStation 1 version anyway. Now they say don't judge a game by its cover, but before we begin, let's quickly open this up and just marvel at the gorgeous presentation. The game comes with not one, but 2 foldouts depicting the 3 cities in the game, Liberty City, San Andreas, and Vice City. It's absolutely fascinating how some 25 years later, the Grand Theft Auto universe as we know it still revolves around these 3 cities. It's pretty crazy. You wouldn't think that they would have had all that figured out back in the first game. But not only that, the game also comes with a fold-out poster, so as a kid you're like, hot damn, this is going to be an incredible game. Now, while I do own physical copies of these games on PlayStation, for this and subsequent reviews, I've decided to go with the original DOS versions, as they run much smoother and have more detailed graphics. As you can see here in comparison, the PS1 is a lot more crushed with resolution and suffers dramatically from slowdown, which simply isn't present on a computer, especially these days anyway. This banger theme and gritty presentation really sets the tone out of the gate. You've got a selection of avatars to pick from, but this is mostly irrelevant as our character is silent and they all sort of look the same anyway. The first map is Liberty City, and we begin our journey as a low-life street thug for hire. Now, if you've never seen this before, it's definitely jarring in comparison to the mainstream GTA experience. I'd like to point out that it's kind of nauseating to watch footage of this game given how the camera works, but I would like to say that it's not nearly as bad playing first hand, based on my experience anyway. But yeah, I wouldn't begrudge anyone listening to this video in the background if they can't stand the motion sickness. Based on that first impression, you need to be prepared for a different kind of experience here. The series has come a very long way over the years, so its debut is almost unrecognisable at face value. Early GTA is built like an arcade title with a scoring system integrated with progression. Your first goal is to reach 1 million points, which sounds steep, but as you complete missions, you can unlock multiplier power-ups which are also sparsely scattered across the map, along with additional lives, perks such as get out of jail free and a police bribe to drop the fuzz during a high-speed chase, but we also have a small arsenal of weapons at our disposal. The pistol, the machine gun, a rocket launcher, and a bloody flamethrower. Yeah, it's brutal. No wonder this was protested for being too violent back in the day. Modern entries feature anti-heroes, bad guys trying to make things right on a path of redemption, or at the very least revenge, but this is just a fucking lunatic criminal running around causing mayhem and seeing points fly across the screen, just from shooting at random people. It's eerily grim and rather senseless, I'm not gonna lie. But now that I've voiced my Christian mother concerns, let's bloody do this, lads. Drop by a payphone for an assignment, crank that radio, and off we go. Missions surprisingly haven't changed much at all in 25 years. The whole meme of drive here so that you can get a thing and then drive there to shoot a guy before driving all the way back is the meat of this experience, as it always has been. And you know what? It's not half bad. Missions often feel quite dynamic with multiple segments, meaning you'll arrive in one location, get a message on your pager, and then have to race somewhere else. I recall often arriving at a destination and meeting a contact just for them to say, "Hey, you see that guy over there? That's him! Follow him to find his buddy's hideout," which creates for a really enthralling string of objectives. Missions lead us all over the city looking for targets and racing the extensive variety of vehicles around the streets, but the first big challenge comes from navigation. You've got the arrow on screen, sure, but that's very much as the crow flies, and will often lead you into dead ends, which can be quite frustrating. Any missions that are time sensitive need to be played flawlessly or you will fail, and once a mission is lost, it can never be attempted again. So without any sort of in-game map, prepare to pause a lot of the time to break out your physical map, which I will say is a cool concept. Being informed of a vehicle parked in a certain part of town for a secret mission, it makes this a highly interactive and immersive game when you have to grab your map and figure out where you need to go. But with the limited graphics, the lack of unique landmarks begins to test your patience when you first start playing. You need to have a GPS brain. That scene from Dark Knight is a great analogy, which thankfully I'm great with navigation and working out exactly what streets I need to take, so after some time on each map, I had a basic foundation of understanding how to get around. But all of this looks so much the same that a vast majority are going to struggle here, and it doesn't help that they give you the worst level first. Liberty City, based off of New York of course, is spread across several islands with choke points at bridges, making it easy to accidentally find yourself following the riverbank trying to make your way around. San Andreas, on the other hand, featuring San Francisco, or San Fierro in the GTA universe, is much better presented. While it's a very hilly area with untraversable edges in key points, districts are much more refined with their style, and the only area blocked by water is easy to access via the Golden Gate Bridge. Compare that to Liberty City, where one of the key bridges in the centre of the map has been destroyed. I mean, the first time you make the jump across, it is a cool set piece, but doing it for every other mission if you don't want to feel around like a blind man trying to find another route makes it needlessly annoying. And God forbid your car isn't fast enough. The final map, Vice City, is made up of a large grid with only a few tangled raised bridges and highways. Otherwise, this flat location is the easiest to blindly navigate out of the three. But if you're still struggling, then you can take the train if you'd prefer. So by successfully completing story missions, murder rampages, and just exploring to find additional means of earning points, finally once you reach your target score on the level, a red arrow will appear, leading you towards a cutscene at the end of the stage.
Hey, Caruso, I got a warning for you from Bald Man Sonetti. Cross him again, I'll stick a gun up your ass and blow your f***ing eyeballs out. Capiche?
Now these are very brief, but they do inject some life into the world, adding a very loose narrative into the mix. Now that I'm older, I can fully appreciate what DMA were going for when they made this. I mean, think about it. This is the purest form of a sandbox video game. Which, I mean, that's a buzzword these days, but just think about it. You can either make it through the game by completing the set tasks given to you, or you can venture out on your own and find other ways of earning money and making it through the game. And I love that. And while I've always been a fan of Grand Theft Auto's narrative being the skeleton underneath the game experience, I've always longed for that Breath of the Wild approach where you're just left on your own to explore the giant world and figure out how to make it through. Now sure, this here is a bit rudimentary and even somewhat outdated, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but the fact that the game leans in this direction, even just a little bit, is very impressive. For 97, this truly living, breathing city was such a technical achievement. To think that it could have been even more groundbreaking for its time is unthinkable. Several members on the development team had pitched for the game to be a third-person 3D experience, similar to another DMA game for the Nintendo 64 known as Body Harvest. I've dabbled with this game firsthand, and for as culturally impactful as Grand Theft Auto was for its time, Body Harvest is the true technical achievement in my opinion. Fully 3D open environments, you can jump into vehicles and drive around, or hop out on foot to shoot at aliens invading this planet. Hell, you can even accurately shoot while you're driving, something that GTA didn't figure out until the 7th generation systems. Now, while the world isn't nearly as fleshed out or graphically on the same level, just the detail here to even so far as offer interiors is absolutely insane to me that this pitch for Grand Theft Auto fell on deaf ears back in the day when it was very clearly within reach. I mean, when you think about it, these large sprawling cities are already rendered in full 3D, as you can see the sides of buildings as you drive past. This makes it fit into a sort of 2.5D realm with the likes of Klonoa or Pandemonium, where environments are rendered in 3D despite 2D gameplay taking place. But the biggest flaw coming back to these games is the bird's eye perspective, like I mentioned at the top. But while the PS1 version suffers from dramatic slowdown, I actually kind of prefer that from time to time. The frames are dog shit, but at least my reaction time is a little better. Whoever thought the fast cars needed speed wobbles where the camera constantly shakes and zooms in and out like this probably ruined the early era of one of the most prominent franchises in gaming history. There's just no hiding from it. For as impressive and a huge achievement for the team it is that they managed such large-scale environments without loading back in the day, had they listened to core members of the team and brought the perspective behind the player, even if that meant sticking with 2D sprites for pedestrians, items and cars, this could have been a much more accessible game throughout the years. Think Mario Kart 64 for comparison. It has 3D environments while playing as 2D sprites. Imagine if we got that sort of thing here. Now, some people have experimented using mods such as Duke Theft Auto, which places the Grand Theft Auto map into Duke Nukem 3D's engine, which start to show what could have been, but instead, the hindrance we suffered caused by a lack of direct sight creates most of the annoying moments in this game. You've got no idea how often you'll see the arrow point towards an objective and accidentally run over an important person or not be able to clearly see where the pay and sprays are when your car is on its last morsel of health. It takes a lot to adjust to this perspective, and once you do, I will admit that I thoroughly enjoyed my time with this game, but even despite that, missions are often so poorly presented that I needed a second run to get things right, once I knew what the hell was expected of me. You're given a brief of what needs to be completed, which flashes on screen at the start of a mission, and then disappears. If you didn't digest all of that information, then you're shit out of luck. So I often arrive unsure if I'm supposed to pick someone up or shoot them all. I've had missions where it says, go out there and take care of those vans, the first one needing to be destroyed. So I race over to the second one and blow that up as well, and mission failed. I mean, how was I supposed to know not to blow this one up? Even with the text on a slow speed, you're almost always in a high-speed police chase during missions, so you don't have time to read all of this information. Of course, the later games would go on to introduce the text log, thank God, but without the lack of any helpful resources here, combined with the brutal force of the lore, make for a steep curve in difficulty that's carried throughout the entire game. And as the score requirements get larger and larger as you progress, there is less room for error. Sometimes, before you can even begin working through missions, it's in your best interest to explore the map, stock up your arsenal, look for body armor so that you can take more than one goddamn hit, and if you can, sniff out some additional score multipliers to start you off. And this is essential, because if you're arrested, then your multiplier gets cut in half, screwing you out of your only reliable method of building up your points. Now sure, there are alternate methods of earning cash in this game, but without substantial point multipliers, it means nothing, making it impossible to progress without successfully completing missions. I'm not ashamed to admit that I did get a walkthrough up to show me where many of these items were, just to balance out that spike in difficulty. Even with that help, you're just not going to stand a chance against a wall of enemies like this. Even inside a vehicle you'd think you'd be safe, but no, they blow these up with ease. It sucks. All of that on top of the overwhelming lack of information and brutal time crunches, you will still get yourself killed from time to time, and with limited lives at our disposal, if you get a game over, then you have to start the entire chapter over again. So keeping on top of your lives is the key to success here, but then the game changes the fucking rules. In the first area, lives can be found like anything else, stashed in crates hidden across the map. When you arrive in San Andreas, there are no lives anywhere. What the shit? So, when you see your count getting low, you need to go and find a kill frenzy mission and earn enough points before the timer runs out, which again, can be near impossible without some of the multipliers in your back pocket, but completion of these grants you an additional life for each successful frenzy. Now, I'm totally fine with this. While I still think there should be a few freebies hidden on the map, earning extra lives is totally fine as well. And combined with the much more traversable and memorable map, San Andreas is the peak of GTA 1. Foreshadowing. But then we get to Vice City, and the rules change again. Not only do lives need to be earned by completing kill frenzies, but then you have to race across the map to find the item before time expires, and holy shit, even with a guide showing me where these things are, you barely have enough time, and I still missed out on most of them by a second because I took a wrong turn somewhere or got stuck in traffic. And with all the mad confusion of this happening, you're gonna trigger the cops and get shot anyway, losing that extra life, or God forbid, half of your score multiplied. Now, I wouldn't usually say this, but I wouldn't begrudge anyone from using cheat codes to make it through this game. Nothing too excessive, maybe just some extra life codes or something like that. Because the fact of the matter is, this game just gets too difficult, and death is the biggest roadblock you could ever imagine. Losing all of your multiplier and stuff like that makes it impossible to even progress. Which is a shame, because I was really enjoying the game up until I started to struggle with this. And, you know, truth be told, I made it through 5 of the 6 chapters in this game without resorting to cheat codes. I did have a few map walkthroughs just to help me find items that I needed, but aside from that, I made it through pretty legit, and I enjoyed my time with it, even if it was a struggle. But, man, it just reaches a point where it becomes a bit unbearable for my taste. Look, all in all, I do have a positive to take away from this game. While it can be frustrating, even exhausting at times, struggling trying to reach that high score, the missions here are fun, and the dialogue is infused with dirty comedy, political satire and themes that are more relevant now than ever if you play it today. For what little narrative is here, it does help to feel like you're leveling up through the ranks of a crime family, and for as chaotic as the gameplay can be, seeing the origins of Grand Theft Auto and so many of the franchise's key features like pay-and sprays, selling vehicles at the docks for cash, and exploring on foot to appreciate the grandeur of this open world is such a fascinating and rewarding time. However, due to many of the issues I've mentioned, I cannot go any higher than a 5 out of 10 on this one. But let me just say, it is a good 5. A solid 5. Some extreme highs with a few extreme lows average this out into a different yet familiar take on the GTA we know today. This game is an achievement for the industry. Just seeing what they were capable of in the open world genre way back when, it's incredible. And without Grand Theft Auto's success, we may not have seen the open world genre like we have it today. And the crazy thing about that is that this is echoed on the Game Boy version. Yeah, the Game Boy version of Grand Theft Auto. Let's quickly check it out. GTA 1 on Game Boy Color, while not even close to as impressive visually, arguably steals the show when it comes to impressing this harsh critic. Look, it's obviously quite a hollow game in comparison, but it still features the extensive maps to explore, dialogue, and simple yet addicting gameplay action. And I mean, that's all you can really ask for with a port. This feels familiar to play with the same jobs, even the bridge is destroyed in Liberty City, but good luck making the jump this time. You're lucky if you can even find a car, let alone one fast enough to clear this gap. The streets are virtually bare, being limited to 2 buttons on the system makes it feel like hell to control, but hey, it's a good effort. I also love the super happy, cheerful music when you steal a car. So yeah, that's the very first Grand Theft Auto. To answer the question, is it worth playing today? Well, it will all depend on the person. If you're curious, then sure, go for it. As a big fan of Rockstar and DMA's work, it's an important piece of history, but for the average player, you just won't get much out of it. Not because of outdated graphics or technical restraints of the era, but simply because overcoming its biggest flaws aren't worth the reward at the end of the day, in my honest opinion. Which is such a shame, but the classic GTA saga doesn't end there. This game would go on to receive both a sequel and a prequel in the form of a downloadable mission pack known as GTA London. Yes, the first GTA game had DLC long before the concept of expansions adding onto a game over time was in the mainstream like it is today. So be sure to stay tuned as we'll be taking a look at that very soon. But until then, I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and remember to share this with your friends on social media. I'm Eyed Jak, and I hope you have a great fucking day. Thanks for watching.
That's Sergeant Liz, Shelby 13 Central. 5 George K.
5 George K.
5 George K. 496 Broadway between Broome and Spring.
10-4.
1 scooter first Board and wall scooter, broad and wall. Available 1 unit for assignment, holding a run number 30 Broad Street, 1022.
13 Sergeant 1 Central.
15 Sergeant 1 K.